Hey guys, welcome back to the Homestead fam. Today I am making a ginger ale. Now this is a recipe that I have been asked for time and time again ever since I've been using my ginger bug, and I want to show you my favorite ginger ale recipe. You can make so many different things with your ginger bug, but this one is great for an upset stomach. So if you're going to, a lot of people know the saying like, oh, drink a ginger ale, or if you're in Michigan like me, drink a Verner's when your stomach's upset. And instead of that, I highly recommend you try to make your own ginger ale, because the commercial ginger ales in the stores sometimes don't even have ginger in them. And if they do, it's very small amounts, and then you have all of the high fructose corn syrup in there and just a bunch of other stuff that could actually make your stomach feel worse. So homemade ginger ale is the best way to go if you're wanting to enjoy a homemade ginger ale. The taste is amazing, but also if you want to kind of help your gut. Now, I had the stomach flu, I'm thinking, just a few days ago, 24-hour stomach bug, and I had my husband make me up some of this, and I've been drinking it the past few days just to kind of help my stomach as I, get eating again and start to make my stomach feel better. And I swear by this recipe, and I love this recipe, and it's always a crowd pleaser. You can customize it however you want. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, and we'll get right into it. Okay, first let's talk about what you're going to need. So a ginger ale recipe is very simple with very few ingredients. First, you will need your ginger bug. If you do not know what a ginger bug is, it's just a fermented starter culture that creates different sodas. If you don't have one or want to learn more, I also have a video on how to make it. I will link that in the description below. So you'll need an active ginger bug. You will need a flip top bottle, or you can use like a mason jar, but just make sure to keep an eye on whatever container you're putting it in, because these flip top bottles are made for pressure. They're made for the gases to build up in there. So make sure to either get these or just keep a close eye on the container you're putting it in. We're going to need organic ginger. I like using organic because sometimes non-organic is sprayed with things that will kill off anything and not allow the healthy bacteria to actually grow. So try to get organic if you can, and make sure it's washed. You're going to need honey. You can also use sugar, but when I'm thinking about doing it for health reasons or to soothe my stomach, I do like to use the honey because honey is great for you. However, if you do just use sugar, remember that your sugar or your ginger bug is going to eat all or if not most of the sugar. So it is a very low sugar drink because your ginger bug eats it. So don't be scared to use sugar, but I'm going to use honey for this recipe. And then you're going to need some lemon and some water, and that is absolutely it. You only need these few ingredients to make your own ginger ale at home, and all very whole, trusted ingredients. So let's get into it. First, we are going to have to make our ginger simple syrup, or just like the base. It's more like a kind of like a ginger concentrate of some sort, right? So we're going to start with a small pot, and we are just going to add our ingredients inside. So first, I'm just going to start with the ginger, and I'm going to cut up about a 1/4 cup of this ginger. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball it because I've done this so many times, but you can add more if you like more ginger. You can add less if it's, a little too spicy or gingery for you. And that's another great reason to make this at home, is because you can customize it to exactly how you like it. So I'm going to just kind of roughly chop this up. You can grate it, but just make sure to chop it up enough that it's going to steep well in your pot. And you can keep the skins right on. That doesn't matter either, as long as it's washed. We're going to throw that right in our pot. I'm going to add just a little more because I feel like I'm just kind of cutting off the bad spots. I feel like that wasn't quite a 1/4 cup. So now that we have a 1/4 cup here, I'm going to throw that in there. I'm going to do the juice of 1/2 lemon. Don't worry about seeds here because we're going to strain everything out anyway. So if seeds go in there, it doesn't hurt anything. So 1/2 lemon. And if you have a very dry lemon or one that's not so juicy, just try to get as much in there as possible or use the whole lemon. And then we are going to do about 2 tablespoons of honey. If you're using sugar, I would say about 3 tablespoons to 4 tablespoons of sugar. 2 tablespoons of honey here. And then I'm going to add 2.5 cups of water to this. Here's one. All right, here's our 2 cups. I'm just gonna give that a little stir, and then we're gonna take it over to the stove and we're just gonna heat it up to a nice boil, get all of that honey, or if you're using sugar, all of that incorporated and dissolved into your water. And then we are going to turn it off and let it just sit there and steep and cool down completely. Okay, I just pulled that off of the stove after a rolling boil. I just let it sit and I'm gonna let it completely cool, but I also had already made some from this morning. So I'm going to show you how to bottle this right up. So I forgot to mention earlier that I use 16-ounce bottles. So if you use anything bigger or smaller, you can adjust this recipe for how many ounces you are doing. So for the 16-ounce bottle, I'm going to put my funnel on top, even though we are still probably going to spill. And I'm going to take my ginger bug with a strainer, and I'm going to strain about a 1/4 cup of ginger bug into my bottle. Okay, that's about a 1/4 cup. Again, these are very forgiving, so don't worry about being super exact or having to follow this recipe to a T. Of course, like, I love this recipe, but you can do so much with ginger bugs and it almost always turns out delicious. So here is about a 1/4 cup of our ginger bug, and now I'm going to strain the ginger ale or the simple syrup that we made into the bottle as well, to cover it to the top. You're going to want to bring this up to about 1 to 2 inches of headspace here, just to give room for a spot for some of that gas to go. And now we are going to seal this, and we will stick this on our counter for about 24 hours. Burp this day and night to make sure it is fermenting and to make sure it's not fermenting too fast that you're gonna wake up to an explosion. And we will set this there, and after 24 hours it should be nice and fizzy and bubbly and great to drink. Now, I do love having a fermenting mat, and I can cut the fermenting time down to between 15 and 18 hours usually. So I'm going to put this on my fermenting mat, and I will come back and show you the final product of our ginger ale. In case you are wondering what a fermenting mat is, this is what I use for a fermenting mat. It is just like a heat mat, and this is actually a germination mat for seedlings, but it keeps it at the perfect temperature for my ferments, so this is where I keep it. It just plugs right in, and it makes my ferments warmer, which is super nice here in Michigan for the winter. It is starting to get to summertime, and it's starting to warm up, so I probably will be able to put this away here shortly, but it just helps your ferments ferment faster. And if you have a super cold house, then your ferments might not do that great at all. So if you are having troubles with that or want to try and increase your fermenting time, then definitely check one of these out. I will link that in the description below too. Okay, we are back. It is now 24 hours later, and we are going to open up our homemade ginger ale. I actually put 2 together, so we will pop them both open and see how they do. So that one wasn't much of a pop, but there's definitely bubbles coming up. And let's do this one. That one was very much a big pop. Let's see. Perfect. And so the difference here could just be the amount of sugar content that was in both of them. That's usually the reasoning before the different pops, because they were both in the same area and on the same heat mat, so same temperature. So this one, I'm guessing, just had more sugar in it than this one, which is why the sugar content is super important. But let's give it a try. So good. Still tastes fizzy, even though it didn't pop. This one's definitely fizzier, and I definitely like this one better because I can also taste more ginger. So there are two separate batches, kind of the same recipe, but again, I kind of just like measure with looks with these because they always turn out great and I don't get too critical with it. So this one, definitely I added more ginger than I can tell, and I steeped it a little longer, which I can tell. And then it also has a bit more fizz. Perfect. All right, so that is it for today with our homemade ginger ale. Perfect for an upset stomach, or if you just want a nice refreshing drink. I'm gonna go put these in the refrigerator, pull them out throughout the day, throughout the week when I want to have a ginger ale, and they should last in there for weeks if you want to. Just make sure that you're checking on them and burping them every once in a while in the fridge. It slows down the fermentation but doesn't stop it, so you don't want anything exploding in your fridge. If you liked this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell icon so that you don't miss any of our future videos, and we will see you next time.